Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a September 5th edition of the MSP Initiative, MSP Talk. Here we are, and the summertime is officially over. I mean, I guess I should have worn an Eagles jersey because the NFL starts this week.
I'm really glad you didn't.
I didn't. Sorry. I guess don't hold that against me. So anyway, let's get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll get into the good stuff. MSPinitiative.com. I joke every time and say, once you learn how to spell initiative or Google it, you can get to MSPinitiative.com. So here you will find this session and every other session we've ever recorded in podcast and video format. So feel free, if you happen to be driving somewhere, like to the airport or the beach, the mountains, podcast is probably the one for you. Thanks for everybody that came out to Community Minds. It was super successful. We love this education format. We are planning future Community Minds events for tons of people have been asking. Stay tuned, right? We're in that 2024 planning phase where everybody's trying to get their, story together and figure out what they're doing. Same here, which I usually leave this last, but our industry calendar, we're going to start to populate this moving forward because we're starting to get all these 2024 dates in. And I know a lot of people do calendars, but as long, we're just putting all of our stuff in one place just because there's so many of them. So stay tuned here as we kind of pencil in things as we're getting things in front of us for 2024. Got some community offers. These are just companies from around the industry that are trying to hook you up. And then lastly, our two remaining parties for the rest of the year. One is the official after party at DattoCon. So if you're in South Florida and you're an MSP and you just want to hang out on a Wednesday night and party and drink a little bit and network, join us. Or if you're going to DattoCon, this is on the second night of the conference. So the first night, where we usually do after the welcome reception, been moved to the next night, which is like the middle night, anchor night of usually a conference, right? You get 3 days usually for conferences, and this is in the middle. So totally free to come as an MSP. Feel free to register. It'll be good. It'll be right on the water, in between where the conference is at, which is the Intercontinental, and the Kaseya Center will be the Hard Rock, where we're doing this party. And then lastly, the big blowout party that we do at the end of the year is officially going to be on the IT Nation agenda after years and years and years of this. Last year we had the All-American Rejects. This year, stay tuned. I think we might have an announcement for you shortly. So this is going to be on the first night of IT Nation after the welcome reception. So after 9 p.m. until the lights go out, you can join us down the street, and we are busing people to and from. And then we will have a pretty recognizable, maybe more than one recognizable entertainment announcement for you. That's all the housekeeping. MSPinitiative.com. There you go. All right. Here we go. So September 5th, we bring back Michael Crean from Solutions Granted. I'm going to poke Michael a little bit because, it's NFL season. I've already wagered his friend and co-traveler on the road. I believe the bet was how the NFC East teams were going to make out. And I said, I think the Eagles are going to have one loss in between the Giants and the Redskins collectively. And he took me up on that bet. I said, okay, cool. So we'll see how it ends up. I think the heir apparent in Dallas has been traded for. I think Dak is on the clock. So who knows what's going on in Dallas? I mean, it's always just Jerry Jones's world, and whatever he decides to put on TV is what we see. But I do like the chances of my Philadelphia Eagles. So I'll put it out there, Michael. What's your prediction for the season? Tell us who's your team, and where do you think? First of all,
I am a suffering Cleveland Browns fan. So, you just, bite your lip. There it is. You can understand. What is my prediction? I'm going to be really happy if we can go 500 this year. Okay. Like if we could just get a 500 season, I'm thinking that's going to be a good year for us.
Okay. I'll take that. That's pretty good. I feel like Cleveland and Philly are like sister cities because we were in the basement for so long too. And then, somehow, some way, the Disney story that hasn't been made into a movie yet called Nick Foles showed up, and, you saw the rest in 2017. People are getting people are getting salty with me saying, I don't understand how $800,000 field doesn't work, but okay, I digress. The Super Bowl did not go in my favor. And I guess Mahomes and the Chiefs, my former coach, Andy Reid, can laugh all the way to the barbecue joint down the street in Kansas City, and that's fine.
I mean,
Maybe kind of
you
sort
can't
of
really,
not.
you really can't take anything away from Mahomes.
I
I mean,
mean,
it's extraordinary
they
talent there.
definitely shot him up in the locker room at halftime. Can we be out? Can we agree on that?
I mean, are you trying to tell me that if you were in that position with that riding on the line and you are the leader of that team, that you're not going to do everything humanly possible to
Okay, all
complete
right.
that game?
Yeah, fine. I agree. Okay. I just don't know if I'll ever get over it, but that's okay. They brought back the Kelly Green jerseys for a couple games this year in Philadelphia, which has been like asked for 20 years in a row. So thankfully, some merchandise sales happening in South Philadelphia.
You've already got yours, I assume.
Oh yes. I feel like it's like, it's like, oh, you need something? Let me send you this. Oh, you need something? Oh, I'll send you that too. And it's just like the common thing now. But I digress. I love all the people that probably didn't clean their closets out from like 1990s. So we're like, hey, I already got the good stuff here. You don't have to go. So Michael, from Solutions Granted, I'm going to let you tell a little bit about your background. And then we're going to go into what I thought was going to just be a fireworks session down in Fort Lauderdale a couple weeks ago, where you were sandwiched in between the CEOs from Huntress and Threat Locker, and then like you were like, I guess the buffer guy in between that was like gonna like prevent somebody from jumping over you. I don't know.
Was I the buffer guy or was I the old guy? Because there was a lot of conversation going on there about my age and somehow I was the old guy and like, yeah, it.
I found it like, I don't know, like you almost had to like fight to get into the middle of the conversation because those guys were like doing like, I don't know, the above board kind of jabs at each other. And then like, it wasn't quite, did you hear about in 2017 at the original IT GlueCon or GlueCon? It was like panel of the Titans. You had like Fred, and you had Arnie Bellini, and you had Austin McCord, and Michael George was at Continuum at the time there, and I guess Gary Pico was up there, Chris Day, and like they sat Fred and Arnie next to each other, and like they opened it up with, Arnie, who was like, I called every single one of you on the stage before this panel, and the only person that didn't return my call back was you, Fred. And Fred's like, yeah, I just don't like you. So I didn't return your calls. So what do you want
that
from me?
that would have been a good one to see. No. That was so with Kyle and Danny and myself. It was nothing like that.
Yeah, it was definitely like not drag out, right? Like I was waiting for like the ring to come out and the cage to come down and like WWE edition, but it didn't turn out that way. These guys were mostly PR-ish, I would say.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. I do think that what was it? Elon Musk and Zuckerberg were supposed to fight in some ring. I would love to see that. Like we'll do like a charity thing in the channel and like, I don't know, could be interesting.
I mean, I'll do it. I mean, Kyle wanted to tell me that I was old, but I think that somewhere, somehow along the way, I could polish off some of those skills that I learned in the military and just bring them back.
Right. That's what I remembered, right? I was like, these guys don't even know that this guy could probably beat both of them up, because like, anyway, that's the background part we skipped over. So before we talk more about that, for anyone, Michael, that doesn't know about you and like your story and a little bit about your company, let's set the stage and then we'll go from there.
Oof. So a little bit of the background, huh? So I spent 9 years in the Army, United States Army combat veteran. I was getting out of the military, was assured that I was going to go work for the U.S. Marshals or some sort of law enforcement because what else was I going to do? I thought that would be my life and where I was going to go, and found myself getting offered a job to go work for a government contracting organization. And at that point in time, it's like in the interviews, like, well, what do you know about computers? Like I could turn it on and I could surf the web. This is 1997. That's about all I knew. Really didn't know much of anything. So took the job because it was offering me a lot more money because I had no idea how valuable my clearance was. But then also found that I got really bored. As a government contractor, is this idea that you were expected to come in, do your job, do it well, and just keep on doing it. And that got really boring to me really fast. Decided to leave government contracting, went out into the commercial market space right at the dot-com failure. So poor choice, Michael Crean, not the best idea in the world. Obviously didn't see it coming. Found myself on unemployment and was mad as hell. Just mad at the world for everything because I had this amazing military career that I'd given up. I had this safe government contracting job that I had given up. And here I am, 31 years old on unemployment, just furious, really angry. Good friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, can you build us a computer and design a network for us?" And it's like, "Yes, I can," because I'm bored and the devil's playground runs really tight in these hands. So I've got to do something to keep myself busy. And about a month goes by and one of the venture capital companies calls me and says, "Hey, our full-time IT guy's leaving. Will you do it part-time?" One of the guys at the venture capital company said, "I've got a buddy of mine that needs some advice. Will you go talk to him?" And an hour after I get out of that meeting, they call me and say, "Well, we'd like to hire you." And I think it was that night I called my mom and said, "Mom, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I'm running a business.
Hmm.
I've got 3 clients. I'm just going to keep on walking through the door and see what happens." And that was 21 years ago. So
Hmm.
it has gone by really fast. It's been a lot of change or be changed moments. We went from being this VAR to went back to being a government contractor, but this time for myself, getting my own facility clearance, having full-time employees that was doing work for the government under the umbrella of solutions granted, became an MSP, realized that I was a terrible MSP. I did not have a proper bedside manner because I was really frustrated when somebody would call me at 10 o'clock at night because they couldn't print. And that little blinky light was telling them that they were out of paper or toner. And somehow that was an emergency for me. And maybe not the best answers in the world as an MSP you should be giving that I let roll out of my mouth. And so wanted to get back to doing something that had meaning and purpose, and decided that, I loved the security aspect of being in the Army. And it's like, so what can we do here? Is like, we became a firewall management and monitoring company and chose SonicWall to kind of standardize. And a year later, we became the North American Partner of the Year and
Hmm.
started to see that MSPs could really use some help in the security space, and kept adding to the stack and adding to the stack. And it was about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago now, we decided to offer our managed security services to MSPs, VARs, and other startup MSSPs, and here we are today, a channel only company with over 1,000 MSPs that we're supporting and doing everything in a month to month, no annual commit, no minimum consumption based model.
I love that
It
model.
kind of works.
I think
Um,
everybody like low risk, high reward, upside. It's like the NFL draft, I hope. Although I think it's like a 50-50 in like the first round, whether they work out or they don't. That's not the best odds, but okay. High upside though. I like that.
yeah.
Um, back to that panel, right? Like, it's interesting where I'm gonna repeat this phrase, and it's not mine. It was a conversation between Matt Lee and Brad Gross. And
hmm hmm
basically the subject was there's a lot of people making money off of really crappy software in this business, not just MSP land, just in
Yeah.
general.
There is.
Security is no different. And I just feel like, and this is me, kind of off the cuff, but it's a little bit of like the gold rush, right? You just put the word cyber or security or some variant of that into your verbiage, and like you're in the mix. And even if your product doesn't really help, the idea that it helps definitely sells. So I guess to that point, a lot of MSPs are getting marketed from, every angle, and their customers, just know that the bill seems to go up every time somebody walks through the door for a meeting.
hmm
And like, what are they getting? Right. Like, I mean, I always tell people, and I think this is the adage across the history of MSP land, right? Like, if you can't make it understandable to the person that's paying you, you're no different than a doctor or mechanic or anybody else who's like, oh yeah, you need, you have this disease or this sensor in your car is broken. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I just know my car doesn't drive. So like, how do we make sense of all of that, Michael? I think, like, how do we make sure that the dollar that you're spending actually comes back in some way?
Well, I think that we as a community, and that includes MSPs and MSSPs, we've lost our way a little bit, and we've allowed manufacturers to tell us what we need.
Mhm.
They're telling us what is good for us, what we need, and how it's going to fix our problem. But the reality is technology doesn't fix any problems. It's people and process that fix problems. You know, you go to your
Okay.
mechanic, and do you want to go look at the tools that are in the toolbox? Because is it the tool that's going to fix the
Not
problem, or is
me.
it the mechanic? No, but I
Not
mean,
me.
I don't care. Like I walk in and I go to talk to Joe, and it's like, hey man, my car is really pissing me off right now. Like, could we? And he's like, yep, I heard it when you were rolling in. It's like, cool. He says, I already think I know what the problem is. Like, leave it with me for a day. I think it's going to cost you about this, and I should have you good tomorrow. I'm out. That's all I want to know. Can you take care of me, and can you take care of me in a way that feels meaningful and purposeful? And if you can, and we've got this faith and trust in one another, then I'm all in with you and you're all in with me, and I'm going to keep coming back to you. I think that's a bit of the problem is that we keep getting told you have to do this or you need to do this. And if I give you this thing, and I think it might have been Arnie Bellini at one of the conferences when they had some deal that they had cut with Meraki for,
Oh,
and it was him, and he says, you know, with this deal and what we've now provided for you, you now are all security providers. And for me, that was
remember.
frustrating because I'm like, wait a second, you know, I'm a security provider because you gave me a box or you gave me a tool. It's like, well, what about being a practitioner? What about having the right people in the place? What about getting all the training? What about having all the experience? What about all the failures along the way to really do something different than just giving somebody a box? So I really struggle with the industry, and I wish MSPs would not let the snake oil salesman, you know, lure them to, you know, this is going to fix your problem. Because what we find quite frequently is they have so many tools. MSPs have so many tools in their bag, they don't even know what tools they have and where the overlap is. And they're not asking the questions, and they're not forcing the providers to answer the questions. Like, I mean, this has got to, it's tough love, right? It's what I believe it is. It just needs to be tough love. I'm fine with people beating me up. Like, you want to come in and you want to beat me up on why I'm going to do or how we're going to do. But at the same time, please don't expect me to do it all for you and you're going to do nothing, because this isn't in it together
Well,
story. This isn't a
you
do it
you
for
did.
you. This is do it with you.
Oh, you kind of mentioned this during that panel I was talking about earlier, right? Like, I think the question that was posed to you was, well, are MSPs coming to you and asking for like software bill of materials and like getting into like the nitty gritty, right? Because all these supply chain things are happening. And I think your reply was very similar, where you're like, hey, I'm willing to go and get this information from you from the other side, SonicWall, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what are you doing, right? Like, you need to be doing your part, and then we'll do our part, and then everybody meets in the middle. And to your point, I just don't think the MSPs understand what a total, like what the big picture actually does look like, right? Because the security thing is so multifaceted. I don't think very few MSPs probably have the knowledge inside their organization to even do it.
I agree with you. I think they really struggle, but it's such a quickly evolving industry. It's a even quickly evolving technology. You know, that this technology that's supporting this industry is evolving so much faster at the moment. It's tough to keep up. And you know, I'm going to tell you, as an MSP, I had all kinds of ego. I had all kinds of ego around the fact of, like, I can do that. Like, of course I can do that. Of course I, you know, and I think that's what we as MSPs, and I can say we because I was once before, you know, we were in that place of we always had to give the client the answer of yes. You don't have to. I mean, like, you don't go to your attorney that helps you with your estate planning and say, hey, I've got a tax problem. Could he help you? Could she? Maybe, but is she really, really well versed in this thing that she's going to get you out of whatever this problem is that the IRS is coming after you or the state's coming? Probably not. So, you know, every heart surgeon is a doctor, but not every doctor is a heart surgeon. So build your team, build it wisely, and build it for the community that you want to be a part of, and somebody that's not going to be there for you on the day that you sign the purchase order, but when the day stuff goes all the way to the right and it gets really ugly.
That's fair. I mean, I think at least the message is out there that there's just too many knobs. There's too many bolts.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many screws to adopt every possible category inside of the MSP. It's just, you just don't have enough manpower, or you don't have enough DevOps capability to automate all the things that can be automated to even realistically take it on all by yourself. I kind of like, like your approach is, hey, I don't write software. I kind of pick the best in class in these categories and I create a holistic solution, right? Whereas some of the other people on the stage are software builders, right? And they're like,
Mhm.
why, this is why you should choose my software package to secure your, systems than these other 5 or 10 or whatever, right? I feel like because MSPs have been like, and just like any trade show we've all been to, where you walk down the aisle and hopefully your credit card has enough limit on it. A lot of people buy a lot of things, but they never actually successfully implement them.
Mhm.
Your company has really said, hey, we've gone out and we've done the homework and we've selected this company for this solution and this company that for that solution. And like, all of your eggs are not in one basket. I kind of like that approach.
I think it works. It hurts me in some sense because, it almost gets down to the Ford Chevy truck conversation. So I grew up in a General Motors family. My mom, my dad, my aunts, and my uncles, my grandmother, they all retired from GM, and I drive a Ford truck. And it's okay because I'm not driving a foreign truck. I'm driving a Ford truck. And so there's a level of respect there. But
Sure.
when you get somebody who's a diehard Chevy truck guy or somebody who's a diehard Ford truck guy, they argue till they're blue in the face why it's so much better, how theirs is superior. But at the end of the day, like, minus some cosmetics in the truck, they haul about the same. They get very similar gas mileage. They have the same anti-lock braking. It's a lot of similarities as opposed to the dissimilarities on the cosmetic side of it. And so that has hurt us sometimes because you get MSPs that are so wow and amazed with Sentinel One or CrowdStrike or Carbon Black or Deep Instinct or InSilo or Fortinet or Checkpoint or Palo Alto or Iron Scales. And the list goes on and on and on. But for us, we wanted to be the subject matter experts. So when you came in and said, hey, why did this happen? Why did this not work? Well, we were your tier 1 and tier 2 support. So we had the responsibility to train you, we had the responsibility to help you with the configurations. We had the responsibility to provide the 24/7 SOC. So we could own the 100% life cycle of it and do it with you. And hopefully we're doing it better together. And if you do the same thing over and over again with the same tool, this is why any good mechanic becomes so incredibly valuable and trustworthy to you, because they just know things and they see things and they understand things. And there's this sense of comfort that just works. So I really much wanted to be like that, and some of that comes from my military background. They don't ask you to do everything. They do give you your specific job that you are responsible for. And yes, you got to know a little bit about a lot of other things, but same with us. We have to understand routing principles. We have to understand, you know, different types of security protocols and different regulatory compliances. And we have to understand different operating systems and how they would interact with us. But at the end of the day, those are just things on the periphery that we have to know enough about to be successful. But we can be really, really good with what we're doing it in the tools that we choose to select, because it's more about the people in the process than it is the tool for us.
So I gotta think that, we always hear the term technical debt. Now, I think I'm gonna use it in a slightly different way, right? The MSP has made these selections up until now. They knock on your door and they're like, tell me about what you can do for me to solve this security thing. Cause like, I'm doing a little bit, but not a lot. And like, I don't know where to start. Do you sometimes get into this philosophical battle over, no, I really like the vendors that I'm bringing to the table. Can you use these instead of yours? Like, how does that conversation go?
I mean, it happens a lot because we're all very proud of the choices that we make in life. And we should be. I mean, we've taken enough time to educate ourselves. We're spending money, we're spending our time and our effort, and we're trying to make the best decisions possible. And so we want to be proud of the decisions that we've made and feel good about them.
Mhm.
And so when somebody comes in and says, hey, I love what you guys do, but I don't like your tools. I like my tools.
Mhm.
My response to that is, I'm sorry. And it's like, you don't like me for my tools. You like me for what we do with tools. And if you want me to be the subject matter expert at the end of the day, so it's a bit of this theory around trash in and trash out. So I think everybody knows that we're a Cylance shop. Like we're the largest Cylance MSSP in the world. We've been doing it for going on 8 years, hundreds of thousands of endpoints of it. And we look at it and somebody comes in with Sentinel-1 and says, well, I don't like Cylance. I love Sentinel-1. It's like, and you have every reason to love it. It is fantastic. It is amazing. And it is wonderful. And it's like, but here's what I don't have the depth on my bench. I don't have a set of engineers that can go in and do a best practices configurations on your Sentinel-1. And I do have that with Cylance. I've got people that have been doing this for years and they know exactly how it needs to be configured. And we always know what's going to happen in that next round of configurations because of that new feature that came out. Whereas if I'm doing it with Sentinel-1, well, why don't I do it with CrowdStrike? And if I'm doing it with Sentinel-1 and CrowdStrike, why am I not doing it with Deep Instinct? And so then how do I maintain this high level of efficacy? How do I make sure that it's not trash in and trash out? Because here's inevitably what happens. If you didn't configure your product well and something slips through it, and there's some logging feature or some blocking feature or some preventative measure that doesn't get enabled and it encrypts your client, and we don't see it as it starts to happen, so we don't get to act like firefighters to come in and put it out because of the bad configuration. So you fed me trash and the trash allowed me to miss it. Well, then who are you mad at? Are you going to accept a response? Yeah, exactly. It's going to be me is who they're going to be mad at because it's not a team sport. Because I hired you to do the thing that I know that I can't do. I told you I can't do it. And I warned you that I couldn't do it. And I was honest about where my weakness was. And I needed you to make me stronger. And so if you're making me stronger with your tool, well, the chances are that I'm going to miss. Because, you look at a checkpoint, you look at a Fortinet, you look at a Sonic Wall, you look like at a Palo Alto. When there's a compromise that takes place, it normally isn't about the technology. It's normally about the people, the lack of monitoring, or the poor configuration in the technology. And so that was one thing I wanted to avoid. I wanted to make sure that we could win the fight far more often than we would ever lose. And it comes from really good, strong configurations.
So the answer is, just to rewind, hey, if you want me to augment whatever your tool is doing, we'll talk about the individual categories that we can help you with, but you wouldn't take a holistic approach with that person until they've adopted the tools that you're set up to fight with, because and you know what happens, right? Maybe they agree to a 3-year contract or something, right? And they're just like, well, I'm kind of stuck. Like, do I end up paying for 2 things? And your response is, well, hey, listen, I know that puts you into a bind, but I just don't want to give you the wrong understanding that, we're experts at this tool that you selected. Let's call Sentinel-1 for the sake of argument,
right?
Because we're not Sentinel-1 experts. So have you found people say, well, I'll just, I know I have the balance of a 3-year contract. I'm just going to put this on the shelf because we know that Sentinel-1 alone isn't the answer, right? Isn't that the end game?
I mean, there's a few of that happens, but I think, so Pax8 has done a really great job of leveling the playing field when it comes to people buying software, because they do allow it to be more of that consumption-based model, so they're not stuck into some of these long-term contracts with some of the other providers out there, and we all know their names, so I don't need to say them. But we find that quite frequently that MSPs are getting smarter about how they buy their technology. And so we're seeing a little bit less of that today than we were seeing, say, 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So it's not quite and we also find too that it was a lot of the, hey, buy this technology. And then they found out how hard it was or how noisy it is. I mean, like, think about it, an EDR. What is the point of an EDR? An EDR is to create noise and for somebody to weed through, because like our vice president of threat operations says, I want all the noise. I want every last little bit of noise that this technology can create, because then what that does for me is it allows me to hunt. It allows me to sift and allows me to see in ways. But as an MSP that you're already struggling with, your 800 emails of how many times you've locked out your password that you've got to go ahead and facilitate, or the internet is down, or I can't print, or whatever it may be, all these tier 1 nonsense things that you've got to take care of. And how much more time do you have to, think about, look at Microsoft 365 and how that is revolutionizing business today. And when you're doing log monitoring coming out of Microsoft 365, it's a lot of data to sort through to figure out what is important to you to create action and what is trash that you can just ignore.
it's interesting. Somebody in a past session recently said, every time I turn around, in order for me to get to the security level that I'm looking for, end up having to spend more money to upgrade to the next tier when it comes to Microsoft, right? Like you start at business basic and then there's business premium. And then they're like, oh, you need this other feature. Now you need to go to, E1 or M1. And then all of a sudden now, like until Microsoft had a boo-boo, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to give you logs now. We're going to give you all this stuff that we used to charge you for. I feel like just like SSO tax is, I think it's still a thing for a lot of, companies. I feel like Microsoft was taxing the securability of their product. Do you agree with that?
I think that look, if there's a business model to make money out of it, they'll figure it out. And it's as the community, and community, I mean us, as in MSPs and MSSPs, and we're the ones buying this stuff from people. And as we continue to mature, and if we start holding those vendors more accountable for the things that they're doing and the things that they're not doing, and start saying, no, I'm not doing it like this anymore. And then eventually change comes. So yeah, they were, but I think it was also new business for them. Like, look, they were an operating system company. They were happy giving you your operating system for your workstation and your server and your laptop, and giving you your Microsoft Exchange and SQL licensing. And then they've just reinvented. They haven't gotten rid of all that stuff, but literally, when you think about Microsoft now, it is hard to not think about the M365 ecosystem, and the SharePoint and the OneDrive and the Teams and hosted Exchange. And how many, I hear this every day when I ask MSPs, how many of your clients are getting rid of infrastructure and getting rid of their file server and getting rid of their domain controller? And it's at least half. At least half of the MSPs that I talk to now are saying, yeah, the majority of our clients are moving in that direction. That's a huge dynamic shift, which
although I still run into a ton of people who are like, oh yeah, we have M365 for all our customers, except we're doing the Azure sync. And I'm like, that means there's a local server somewhere doing something. He's like, well, all of our customers have that turned on. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, this is like a half in, half out operation.
Yeah, well, they want options. Let's just make sure that they're on both sides of the fence. So if they have to hop quick, they can come back or forth.
Options, which comes back to, again, the kind of solutions granted model. It's all about options, it sounds like, right? Like
it is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't have bundles. I don't have mandates. If somebody comes in and let's say they're using ConnectWise and they've got SentinelOne, and I'll say it's Fortify because I know it's not called Fortify anymore. I don't know what the hell they call it now. They've renamed it because Microsoft changes its name, so other people should too. But they call it something else now, that MDR offering with the endpoint with the SOC, and they love it. Cool. Well, if you love it, then don't trade your horse for mine, because I'm the devil you don't know right now. You've got the devil that you know, but where are you struggling? What keeps you awake at night? What are you not happy with? And maybe it's they don't like what they've got with their 365 SOC services. Maybe they really hate their email and cloud security offering and phishing is destroying them. Maybe they want to offload their Sonic Wall firewall management to somebody. So whatever it is that I can help you sleep better at night is what we want to do. And if one day you come back and say, hey, I'm done with ConnectWise. I've had enough of them. I don't want to do it anymore. Their business practices, the technology, whatever it is, I don't care. Well, then I'm standing here waiting, and I'm willing to give you a hug and say, come on, you were my best friend when you started with me 6 months ago, and now you're going to be more of my best friend today. It just should be, in my opinion, I think it should be easy to do business like that. And it's the way I want to do it. And as a CEO and founder, I guess it's how I choose to do it.
Again, I would say, you made a mention of Pax8 earlier, but like that, I don't want to get locked into something where like we just started getting to know each other. I'm not getting married on day zero, right? But unfortunately, the business model that's crept into this sandbox has been, no, yeah, you need a multi-year agreement. This is how we do it. We don't even offer a month-to-month. At the minimum, you're signing for a year. Like you didn't even turn it on yet. You're already into the contract. Definitely doesn't make it feel like it's a two-way street.
It's certainly hard. I get it. When you're when you're either owned by private equity or venture capital, or you've got a board and you've got a bunch of people that you've got to report to, and the traditional way of thinking is I've got to be able to, figure out what I'm going to bring in, what that revenue looks like, and how I'm going to predict and project. And if you can do that because you've got these contracts that are pretty ironclad that you've got people locked into, and as everything is for sale right now, like literally everything. Like when you watch Kaseya by Datto and the price that they paid for that, like, I mean, it was pretty amazing. What was it? When Cisco bought Duo, wasn't
Mhm.
it like a wasn't that like a 2 point something billion transaction? Like that one blew my mind. Like that.
I, I'm gonna pull it up
I,
right now. Now
I thought
you got me
I thought it
curious.
was
I
I
remember
thought it
what
was a
data was. Hold on.
I thought it was a little over, and that was years ago. And you weren't seeing a lot of billion-dollar transactions
There
in
it
the
is. Two
technology space.
point three five billion.
Yeah. So, and that was how many years ago? I mean, and so
That was
back,
back
is that
in
18?
2018.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about 18, $2+ billion. That felt like an astronomical amount of money. And then you see Kaseya by Datto, and, well, let's see what Sentinel,
6.2 billion.
let's see what Sentinel-1 sells for. I mean, because
For shopping, yeah.
they're shopping. So it's nothing is everything is for sale. I don't think there's anything out there that somebody doesn't have the money to buy anymore. So
Hmm.
it's but when you've got that kind of money being invested, you want to make sure that you're getting a return on your investment. And for me, there's an exit strategy somewhere along the way. There has to be. I mean, like this isn't going to be a multi-generational business. I'm already well aware of that. I mean, I had a old friend of mine that was Israeli Special Forces, worked at Coopers and Lybrand for a while. And he was asking me one day, and maybe year one in the business, like, well, what are you going to do with this business? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing. And hopefully it's not a train that's running me over tomorrow. He's like, no, be serious with me for a second. Like, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, it'd be awesome if I could get one of my kids to take this over. And his first, you're a dumbass. I was like, wow, you want to do something great for your family and make this multi-generational business. He's like, no, absolutely not. He says, you started with lint in your pocket is what you started with it. He said, somebody rolls in and offers you a truckload of cash, you run with it like you stole it, because what you can do with that for your family for the future is far different than taking this multi-generational business. And so I obviously was really hurt. It was like, man, I want to do something for my family. This is great. This is awesome. And now I'm a dumbass. But now I understood why I was a dumbass. It's
Hmm.
it's tough.
I kind of feel I hate to even put this up against the analogy here, but like it's kind of like the casino, right? I mean, I'm not a gambler, but if you're up by multiple figures, I think you just got to take the money and run before you lose it all. I would think business is a much more of a sure bet than, pick your, Vegas strip, door to walk into. But I don't know.
I think
The markets are,
if you're running a smart business, it is for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
it's for me, I want to feel good when I go home at night. I also, I've got a 12-year-old son. I mean, like, I want him to see something different in me than what he sees on the national news. I want him to see honesty. I want him to see somebody who's ethical. I want to see him see somebody that says, I screwed that one up today. Man, it was not a good day for me. And here's what I did wrong. But here's what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not doing that again. That one is not going to happen again tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm going to be a better version of me than I was today. And it doesn't always have to come at the expense of making somebody sign a piece of paper that says you're bound to me for the next however many years. And fortunately, I've got a ridiculous attrition rate. And when I say ridiculous, I mean ridiculously low. Like my attrition rate is about 127 to 134%. So I'm growing constantly, which is just insane. So, it proves to me that annual and multi-annual isn't the only way to the top of the mountain.
that's fair. And I think that there's a lot of, I guess the cool part about the, all technology space, good economy, bad economy. And what many people have pointed this out to me is that technology kind of goes at its own, kind of pace. I'm not saying it doesn't get affected by it, but like it doesn't stop.
No.
And the other thing I noticed is like, hey, like circle of life, right? You get the people coming in to buy you from the top, other people sprout up from the bottom. And like you can tell the people who are in that lane versus the lane that you're in, which is, hey, if I don't have to lock you into a contract, I'm not going to. And by the way, I'm not going to fight with you if for some reason your circumstances change and it's not working for you, right? Like, if this isn't the right solution for you, don't let me stop you from doing what's best for you. And like, to your point, it just feels like it's more of an organic relationship where like everybody has skin in the game rather than a one way.
I mean, you're a big sports guy, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
like sports just a little bit.
I love it.
I mean, it's all about the team. You know, one player doesn't win the game. Never
That's
does.
true.
I mean, you look at the military, you look at the special operations community, you look at a bunch of firefighters, you look at police officers, you look at people that are running into whatever the thing is that everybody else is running from. And when they all run out together, they all come out together, that is success. If you lose somebody along the way, it's sorrow across the entire team. And I think that's the place as a community that we have to get to. We have to start feeling success together and sorrow together and stop pointing the finger at one another. And some of it you can just start with how we choose to do business with one another and what is important to you. Is it the piece of paper? Is it the contract? Or is it knowing that if you do the right thing, people will stay?
I'm a door number B guy here. I'm wired the same way, by the way. You want to call that old school? That's okay. I'm not offended by that. Let me flip the conversation quickly into a slightly different direction. It feels like everybody in the security space is in a race to announce the next bad thing, right? Like I don't know if I'm like mimicking the mainstream media or what, but like, hey, like, oh, I'm the first one to put out there that so and so got hit, or we found this vulnerability or whatever. And like, I feel like there's a fine line between, hey, I'm educating the community to make sure that they're prepared versus marketing.
I think there's some notoriety that potentially comes from, I found this before anybody, but I also think there's a way of being acknowledged for when you found a 0 day. And you've seen it both ways. You've seen it where they've blindsided manufacturers and not told them. And then you've seen it where if you're in the know, you've seen where the manufacturers were given time and they were told like, hey, I'm going to tell the world in 3 days or 10 days or 7 days or whatever the agreed upon time frame is, that this is out there. We are the organization that found it, but we're going to give you a chance to fix your stuff because everything has a vulnerability in it. Look, we're humans, we're fallible, which means we're going to make mistakes, which means the code that we write, and you build the best mousetrap, the mouse is going to get smarter, the mouse is going to find a way around it, and it's going to happen. I mean, like, how many thousands of years have we been trying to secure our homes?
Since the home was invented.
Right. So why have we not been able to figure out how to secure a home in a way that nobody can break in? It's just kind of the way it is. So I wish that we would act again. It goes right back to the same thing. We need to act like a community. We need to act like a family. We need to act like a team. We need to take care of one another, because if you just go out there and blast somebody, well, that doesn't make you look like you care about anybody but yourself. My opinion.
I understand when you're in that business, you got to be in the game, I guess, but I guess we all have opinions in the right and the wrong way, but actionable and practical things, right? Maybe like they always say in the news business, you need multiple sources before you go out there and put it out there. But yeah, I feel like it's, to your point, a little bit, some people get blindsided. I don't know if that's the right way. I appreciate the, hey, secure yourself story, but there's a balancing act there. I digress.
I agree.
Just a little bit about the categories that you've amassed, right? Because I mean, I guess over time it's gotten deeper, right, on what you guys have and what you guys offer. So
it has.
like, maybe you can explain like the areas that you cover and like what your best in class selection was for each of the categories.
Sure. So one thing that I can go through for sure is like when you look at NIST, for instance, and you try to look at the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Well, let's just talk about the thing we don't do. We don't recover. We don't have backups. We don't, I mean, we can help you with strategizing around how you recover, but we don't have anything in the recovery space. Now, we can identify a problem, we can help you protect against a problem, we can detect a problem, and we can respond to a problem. And we do a lot of those things. So we've got two MDR offerings, if you will. You've got MDR for, we could say, endpoint, which is your Windows, Linux, and Mac. And then we've got MDR for cloud. I wish we didn't talk about it that way. I wish that there was a quicker transformation that was taking place, that we as an industry would start talking about Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace as another operating system. And then we would just call it MDR. And I also think it would help us understand and identify how to secure it better and quicker, because if we look at it as another operating system, like, look, you need to keep up with your patches. You're going to want to put some sort of antivirus in place. You're going to have some sort of log monitoring and a stock service around it. So if you would think about that in Windows, Linux, and Mac, if you just think about that in the Microsoft or Google Workspace side, well, then it becomes pretty simple and easy to define. On the endpoint side, I had said earlier that we're a very large Cylance shop, largest MSSP in the world. We actually don't use the Cylance EDR component, which most people don't know. We were using it for the longest time, but we kind of outgrew it. It wasn't keeping up with us as well as we wanted it to. We didn't have as much control over it. It wasn't as flexible. So there's this little company called InfoSight, which got acquired by Datto, which is obviously acquired by Kaseya, which is called Datto EDR. And that is the EDR technology that we use. It was actually a technology that when we first met them, they didn't have. So we had this opportunity that we got to have something built in a way that we wanted it, that was good for us, because we were a part of that. And so it really helped us to have an EDR doing the things we wanted it to do, the way we wanted it to do it, which is always backed by our 24/7 SOC. Not that this is good or that this is bad, but for some partners, this really makes a difference, is that we are 24/7, 365, but we're not outsourced. We're not taking it overseas. Everything we're doing is here in the United States. We're not partnering with somebody. We're not outsourcing it to somebody. So for your clients that have those requirements, whether it falls under CMMC or DFARS or whatever it may be, we now have that ability that our SOC can check that box for you. So, and again, we are your tier 1 and tier 2 support, just like we are for everything. On the cloud side of it, we've picked 2 different technologies that we wanted to bring into play. One of them was Avanan. So we were looking for something that was really preventative, very proactive, because again, if I want to build an MDR for the cloud, I need to prevent things. I need to be proactive with things. So we picked Avanan because it was the only API technology out there that was pre-delivery and not post-delivery, which was hugely important to us. And when we first started with them, we had malware defenses for Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, which, think about it today, you get rid of your file server, now you've got your iPhone or your Android or your tablet or your home computer and you're accessing it. Well, where's the antivirus protection? Where's the anti-malware protection? It's not there. So we've got to put something in flight to help with that. I think we've probably all heard of this other little company by the name of SaaS Alerts. Pretty big name in the channel these days with what Jim Lippy and Chip have got going on over there, but they didn't have a SOC. And so we partnered with them so we could bring their technology inside and wrap our SOC around it. So now we're triaging all the logs, we're triaging all of the alerts, and that's how we build out this cloud MDR offering that we have. A lot of prevention with a lot of fantastic technology backed with my people in our process. Those are 2 of our biggest, brightest stars. We can take in firewall logs, like it's everything. Everything except for Calyptix. Calyptix tends to be the one that eludes me because they want to do it their way and they don't want to do it kind of the industry standard way, which has caused us some problems. But whether it's SonicWall or Checkpoint or Fortinet or Palo Alto or Meraki or pfSense or WatchGuard, we have the ability that we can ingest all those logs and do SOC services around it. We've got a really great offering with, George, have you heard of the company Evo Security?
I have. Yeah, we just had them on maybe, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was talking to, and they're very much in startup mode, by the way,
Yep,
right?
they are.
I mean, they definitely, took the 2 or 3 things that they do and they do it well.
So we had been working with them for almost a little bit over a year before we actually launched with them. Um, really like working with Michael Roth over there. Great guy, great offering, great ideas. And I think they're really addressing this whole identity and access management, MFA, IDP space, and doing some really cool things around it. So we brought that in because I was tired of telling people, could you please use MFA? I did say please. I'll say it 2 more times if you'll just do it. Pretty please, would you do it? Because it's still surprising to me how many compromises we see in a monthly basis that 2 things are rarely ever implemented: MFA and conditional access. It's crazy. I mean, what did Mike? So it was at Andrew's event, right, of Boom, in March or February, whenever it
That
was,
was great in
where
Dallas. Yeah.
the executive director of CISA came out and said that Microsoft's findings were 32, 33, 34% of people in the ecosystem are using MFA. What a terribly sad and shocking number.
So across all Microsoft 365 accounts, they only had 32% covered.
How crazy is that?
It's
That's
pretty
terrible
low.
for something that we've been talking about as a community for 10 years.
Yep.
And it may be longer than 10 years, but I can't tell you how many times we run into where somebody comes to us and says, hey, we need help. Can you be our incident response team? We've got this new client, or we've never met you before, but we need your help. And you just come in and it's open RDP. There's no MFA in place. Patch management is awful and sucks. I mean, and people are running around with their user accounts that are domain admins, enterprise admins, and schema admins. And it's almost like well, is that a bad thing? I don't know. Ask Microsoft. I mean, like, it's their stuff and they've probably been saying it for a very long time. It's a bad thing.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. Okay. So just to recap, and then obviously SonicWall, right? We forgot about
Yeah. So we have a firewall as a service program with SonicWall. Again, we'll do SOC services where we'll take the logs in and ingest them. But if you want somebody to configure it, if you want somebody to deploy it, if you want somebody to do every add, change, delete, or if you want to get out of the capital expense game and you want to turn this firewall into a service and make it operational, George, I will provide you, but only you, just today, because I'm putting my sales hat on. No, we actually do it as a monthly cost with no annual commits. So if you take a TZ6,
it's better than what SonicWall does directly.
it is a little bit better than what they do direct. Yes, sir. But I mean, and we don't have, I mean, I think our average rate of return is like 22, 23 months. I mean, I could wrap it up in a contract, but why? Business happens. It's like life happens, business happens. Sometimes they get acquired. Sometimes they go out of business. Sometimes, they shut down the building because they realize they can work from home and they don't need that traditional brick and mortar anymore. And when you can enable an MSP to have that type of flexibility for their client, what does that do for the client when you give them the easy out? Because you know that you've got the easy out. I mean,
yeah, 100.
It
so
works.
You have a lot of so you have SonicWall, you have Evo, you have Avanon. Is that what that?
Yep, Avanon and SaaS alerts that kind of come together on the cloud side. And then you've got Cylance and Datto EDR that come together on the endpoint MDR side. We do have an XDR platform where everything feeds and backhauls into, so that, we've got this one central, I don't want to call it repository because then that seems to cheapen it for its value, but it's a central processing location where all of the rule sets and machine learning and AI can go to work and normalize and enrich and enhance that data, so we can get rid of what truly is about 99% of the trash that then allows my human beings to get into it and do something really spectacular with when there's a problem and how we can respond to it and stop it from being your house being fully engulfed in flames to maybe you've got a little smoke damage in the kitchen.
Okay, I like that. I'd rather not have to start from scratch. I'll take that.
Yeah, I don't want to start from scratch either.
So, and then obviously to your point, your human beings are your human beings.
Yes,
You're
sir.
on your payroll, you hired them, you just, you put the team together. I gotta imagine that's a lot of noise coming at you, man.
It can be. I mean, but it's been an amazing journey. Like, some of the guys and gals that we've hired from the most crazy places that you could never imagine. Like, 2 guys that we hired probably maybe a year and a half ago. They were mechanics. That's what they had done their entire life, mechanics. They were tired of busting their knuckles. They were tired of being dirty. They were tired of sweating, and they wanted to find their way into some other field, hoping to get into IT. And my CFO was friends with them through her husband and brought them in for an interview. The logical mindset of what a mechanic is capable of doing has transitioned into them being such incredible SOC analysts. One of them has now become our blue team lead, and the other one has become our subject matter expert with Avanan and cloud security. And in a very short period of time, because there's just this, those are things you can't train. You can't train logic. You can't train troubleshooting that way. And they came with it. They just didn't understand the technology piece of it.
Talk
And
about
these guys are
reinventing yourself. I
they
like
are
that.
freaking amazing. I mean, so that's one of the cool things that being the CEO and founder has allowed me to do, is being able to hire in these really peculiar, untraditional ways that we have found silly success. Like it's
I love
been cool. I
that.
mean, it hasn't always all been a success, but we've had more success than we've had failure when we've hired that way.
I love that. I love that. Michael, where do people find more about this, taking a look at the offering, maybe talking to somebody to figure out if it fits for them, and like just generally, where do they start?
I mean, always www.solutionsgranted.com. That's an easy way. I'm a big talker, shocker, because we couldn't figure that out in this conversation. If you want to pick up the phone and call and you say, or you want to go on to the website and say, hey, I'd like to learn more about becoming a partner. We're all about trying to take that first meeting as a collaborative security conversation, just to understand where you're at, what you're doing. And I think, I heard this one from Matt Lee. It was about, cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination.
Fair.
I think he was the first person that I ever heard say that. And we really try to treat every new partnering relationship that way. You're on this journey somewhere. You're either at the beginning, you're at the middle, or you're at the end, or somewhere in between. And if there's a fit, we're going to find it together, and we're going to know that it fits together. And if there is no fit, we're also going to find that together. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you to get what you need out of this relationship that hopefully over time grows. So email us, go on the website, call us. I would not recommend sending a courier pigeon because they've got a pretty high, counter strike option here in the Washington, D.C. area. And I hope those pigeons don't get knocked down by anything as they're flying over the Capitol.
No carrier pigeons. We'll stick to the electronic roads.
There you go.
I'm a phone guy, surprise, but I like to actually talk to people. I digress.
I do too.
This session was recorded. It will post it up at mspinitiative.com on their sessions in a little while. Guys, if you're doing this on your own and you don't think you have 100% of the story figured out, or you're not really confident in whatever you're doing, do start down, like just start with a conversation. Sounds like these guys don't go down the, hey, sign for 3 years model. So it doesn't really hurt to at least start somewhere. And maybe you end up either more educated about where you're trying to go, or maybe this is an option for you. But I'm fond of people who actually pick up the phone and take my call and like have that one-on-one conversation. For some reason, it seems to be harder and harder to do that these days. I don't know why people think bots and text messaging are the way. I tend to avoid them. I don't know why. I just, don't think I'm going to get what I need out of it. I digress. Hit up solutionsgranted.com. See if these guys are for you. I'm sure we're right at the end here. I know you guys love events. I assume we're going to see you at a bunch of events between now and the end of the year. Any that come to the top of your mind?
Yeah, I think you and I are going to be at TechCon Unplugged in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
In Jersey. So I'm going to be there with you with that. Then we've got ASCII Chicago later on this month. Definitely going to be at DattoCon in October with you. ASCII will have an event in October. Yeah, we've got, I think, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 7 events before the end of the year that we're still going to pull off. So we got a little bit more road time ahead of us.
I love it. There's nothing changes in person, by the way. I love phones and web meetings and videos, but man, something about the beer and the conversation that comes along with it. Sign me up.
Do you really like video meetings?
No, no,
I was gonna say, because I hate them. Like I feel like sitting here for an hour, I feel like a caged animal. Like I
yeah.
hate to sit. I absolutely hate it.
I do what has to be done, but I'm an in-person guy, no offense. And for all the people that think that football is better on TV than there is in person,
Oh,
I
come on.
disagree. I think you should be in the building and then make that decision because I think they're completely different.
Yeah. That's the only way I can watch baseball. I cannot watch it on TV, but I will definitely love a game in person.
100%. Michael, thanks for jumping on. Could probably talk for a whole nother hour. I'm sure we'll talk shop next time we see each other. Maybe we'll if there's something that comes really crazy out of TechCon in New Jersey coming up this upcoming weekend, trust that I'll be bringing that up too. I love those.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Have a great one. Take it
Thank you,
easy,
sir. It was
everyone.
great seeing you.
See ya.